Y ellos la llamaban Alejandrina. Sin embargo,
We on big. Saludos a todos los que nos están escuchando. Vamos en español. We're going to be doing the Spanglish version of precisely this conversation. We're going to talk about the importance of Bad Bunny in the next elections. Let me just mention and show you some facts, recently facts about where in New York City the elections are headed. This is yesterday. This is today's. Yeah, this is 2 days ago. Polling in New York City. I have no idea what Cuomo's still doing there, really, and it may just be things that we don't understand. Like ever since the Charlie Kirk assassination happened, anything's possible in this country. I think people are very much disgusted with all of the things that have been going on for the last 5 years. And we thought, including myself, that voting for Trump would have solved some of these issues precisely because that was part of what he promised, right? Now we know that that is not the case. Now we know that Trump is a continuation of everything and every other disaster that we have seen during the last 12 years of elections in the US and for the world, because part of what we have forgotten is that the US, like it or not, is the symbol to democracy for the rest of the world. So the fact is that whatever's happening in the US becomes the standard for the rest of the world. So what are we seeing in the last, let me put this up here. I'm using some images just so people know they don't belong to me, but we are going to share with you some ideas of how Bad Bunny is probably the most important element in this November's mayoral election. I'm gonna share with you that let me bring this in. Okay. All right. So let me go back to the title and then we'll share with you the sound. Trump gains with Latino voters, loses some in white voters exit polls. This was 2020 election, and for the election on this last election, the 2024 election, the Latino vote was crucial because the ones who stayed home, that huge number of Latino voters who stayed home, about 70% of the drop-off voters were predicted to be Democrats. That is so significant for an election. 70%. The number of voters, of Latino voters in the US is estimated to be in the millions. It's probably, we are pretty much, and when I say we as Latino as a bulk, I am of Puerto Rican descent. I was born and raised in New York City, and Dominican Republic, Cuban, Mexican votes. We tend to participate in elections as part of our culture. I mean, it's just normal to participate in elections. So it isn't strange for us to be part of the democratic process. There's a lot of people talk about what happens in other countries and how dictatorships and all that, but they forget that most, if not all, of these dictatorships were sponsored by US, CIA, and propaganda and money to overthrow center and leftist, socialist, communist governments. So we saw that in Venezuela, we saw that in Colombia, we saw that in Haiti and Dominican Republic, you name it. All of the Americas have somehow, as a matter of fact, there's a great book called Las Venas Abiertas de América Latina, which is the open veins of Latin America. And it talks about La Escuelita de los Dictadores, a school of dictators, which is basically a CIA op, and how that influenced the politics in all of Central and South America and the Caribbean. So, and it still does today. So back to Trump and how Trump got elected. Trump got elected with not only the white vote, MAGA vote, but a whole bunch of people who saw in the Democratic Party a disgusting process, a disgusting 4 years of Biden, Kamala Harris, baby surgeries, and the whole we're going to change the whole sex thing on Latino communities is very touchy. A lot of communities, Latino communities and Black Latinos still see homosexuality as a sin. That's not my view. That's the view of the communities. I think the Latinos are a lot closer to conservative Republicans when it comes to a lot of their views than the Democratic leadership tends to forget. Here's for a lot of years, most of us, including myself, voted in favor of Democratic views and candidates because we thought they represented us. That is not the case when it comes to actual actions. When it comes to actual politics, most of Latino communities, most of Latinos families are Democratic, and I can say that in Puerto Rico. I mean, when you talk about a lot of the Democratic views when it comes to with democracy, when it comes to abortion, when it comes to same-sex marriages, there are a lot of communities that still don't understand it, that still don't get it, right? And although they can be accepting and loving, they still don't understand that community as part of a majority of the Latino communities. There is a minority within all of our communities that represent these views, but they're not the majority. And that is not my opinion. I have been working with the LGBT community for decades. I've been part of the AIDS Foundation. I was part of the first groups in San Francisco to work communities towards all of that. And I really believe that the heart of the Latino community in general is one of welcoming and love. And there may be a lot of machismo, and I'm cautious to use that because it's part of the culture and it shouldn't be looked at as a negative view. There is actually aspects of machismo, which is the protective end of it, which is the providing end of it, which is um, the family structure end of it. Those are things that can be seen as positive. The machismo has become a bad word because it's been key to breaking down how these families function and dismantle their views. This has happened across the board, and you can see that today. But going back to the Latino votes, that would be a great conversation. I think I'm going to have in a future show. But going back to the voting for Trump, so I myself and a whole bunch of people that I know voted for Trump. Today, I am no longer. I'm actually disgusted with a lot of the stuff that's going on with Trump in the last 9 months. Everything that I voted for, and there's a lot there's a list of like 11 things that I had to justify to a lot of people, and I had to because there was a lot of friends of mine who were questioning my community activism for more than 30 years and how I actually have lived while community service, activism, environmentalism, LGBT community, all these things that are border and rights and freedom of speech. So all these things, people started to question me as to why am I voting for Trump, and I had to put it together, even in my head, to be able to share it. So everything from Puerto Rican independence to censorship to opening up social media to breaking it down from the monopolies to the economy, all these things were essential for my voting for Trump. That's no longer the case. I'm seeing there's a whole chaos going on, and it's going absolutely in the other direction. And obviously, probably the main, or one of the main reasons is the whole Netanyahu thing and the whole Russia-Ukraine thing. I find it absolutely disgusting how this has totally been continued sponsors and the killing of babies and all that stuff. I can't stand for that shit. I don't stand for any war. So just bringing it down. So the Latino community who voted, like myself, for Trump are probably going into questioning as to why we voted for Trump. And we thought, I think I shared with you just now, that part of the reasons, there's a lot of reasons why I voted for Trump. Those reasons are no longer there because Trump has backed up a lot of the things that he said during the campaign. And specifically when it comes to persecuting, specifically when it comes to censorship, specifically when it comes to controlling the border. Yes, he's controlled the border, but he's focused specifically on the Latino brown community. And those are not the only illegal migrants. And I hate using illegal, but the undocumented migrants on the island. So how do you develop a strategy where you can be more balanced? The whole censorship thing is disgusting, how everything's just come back, and even to a greater degree on persecuting people who say shit, at the university, who say shit absolutely on social media, who say stuff, who are not getting jobs because they said so, because they made a comment on Charlie Kirk. Hey, I have not said anything negative, and I will not say anything negative. I think it's absolutely disgusting that people say things when it comes to something like Charlie Kirk that are negative, or even applauding shit like that. I think that, the whole Mario thing and all these other people who have mental issues, killing people, CEOs or whoever, I think it's disgusting and saying it. But do they have the right to say things like that? Yes, they do in this country. Do they have the right to criticize the government? Yes, they do in this country. Do universities and presidents of universities have the right to say things? You don't fire a president of a university like Harvard because she made comments or because these things were allowed. So if you're going to be worse than the censorship that was imposed on by Biden and Kamala and all these other crazy people, in that government, in that democratic government, then we don't want that. So we're going to focus now on that Latino vote running away from Trump, running away from MAGA, who I myself never called myself a MAGA. And I think most Latinos voted because of the economic reasons. I think that's a fact. And we weren't considered MAGA just because of all of the variables. But now, we voted for Trump, and now we're going to make it right, because now we see Zohran Mamdani as an option in New York City. Why do we see Zohran Mamdani as? Because everyone's, the obvious thing is that if most of these people, including the government, including President Trump, including Rubio, including all these people, are persecuting candidates, that is exactly the disgusting things that we hate about most of the countries, Latino countries that we came from. And most of the things that we criticize about, African, even Israel, and all of these countries that have no democracies in place, and it's either no kings when it comes to a lot of the Middle Eastern countries, where they do have kings, or Africa, or even Europe when it comes to England and all that other crap that happens worldwide. So, Bad Bunny. I think when the Trump people started to attack the possibilities or Bad Bunny for the Super Bowl, I think this has backfired heavily on the Trump campaign, and even the Republican Party. I think it's backfiring in a big way, because what we voted for when we voted for Trump was inclusivity. And now people are saying, yeah, but he's a liar. Yeah, that may be true. And now we've confirmed a lot of that. So the same thing with the Epstein files. What's up with that? We need to get that out in the open. And we see how Trump is just fighting in favor of keeping all that shut down. So there's a lot of reasons why people are backing up from you, Mr. Trump. And sadly, we had hopes that you would have returned America back to its origins of free speech, no censorship, and the ability to use democracy and the vote as an alternative to the chaos that we saw during the Biden years. So what we're asking people now is that we will vote, Latino community and everyone else who voted, who no longer votes, who no longer believes, who no longer trusts the Trump administration, to vote. If you're in New York, vote for Zohran Mamdani. And if you're from another community, to choose wisely. Choose people who are not pro killing babies. Choose people who are not getting money from lobbyists, Israeli lobbyists from abroad. Choose people who are criticizing and being honest about the stuff that is obvious to all. Things like what's happening with a lot of these American citizens, or in process of, who are legally here and are being kicked out for some stupid ass fucking, I have an opinion different from the Trump camp. So we're asking people to vote Mamdani. That's one. We're asking people to vote wisely and try to clean out Senate and governors and mayors who are taking money and who have just ignored the reality of free speech and having the ability to see things from a humane perspective. I'm not saying for Republicans to become Democrats. I'm not saying for people who are MAGA to become Democrats. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying that what is happening is not what we voted for, or that's not what I voted for. So Zohran Mamdani is an option in New York City, and I have decided that my vote is going to be wise when it comes to cleaning out a lot of these people who are getting money from Israel, mainly Israel, because I'm seeing it as an intervention in American politics, as it would be if it was coming from Russia or from China or from whatever other country. Yes, it'd be the same thing. So I'm acting with that in mind. And whoever I understand has that, and who hasn't been honest with me or with themselves when it comes to what they've said before and where they are now, I'm going to vote them out. So that's what we're asking for. For this 4th of November, you're going to vote for Zohran Mamdani. Investigate. There are no other options. The people who are in the whole Cuomo thing, what the hell is that? You know? And Mr. Garden Angel, hey, thank you for your contributions, but no thank you. You need to be honest with what's going on in Palestine and Israel and the disaster that Netanyahu, the assassin, the genocidal criminal that should be in jail or in some sort of mental institution, has done to the world. Because now we can talk. What's up? What happened to all those people who talk about global warming and we have fucking 4 years of economic and environmental disaster? What's up with that? You know, I don't hear a lot of people who used to talk about global warming talking about the wars. What's up with that? Isn't that obvious? I mean, what's happened in the last 4 years alone has incredibly put us all in this whole thing of global warming with a times 20, you know, when it comes to the kind of bombs that have been experimented and the killing of, you know, almost 1 million people in Gaza and Ukraine and most of these people. We thought that was all over with. So I'm going to keep it short. So Voto Latino for Zohran Mamdani, November 4th in New York City. And whoever you have seen, understand, who has been dishonest, it's time to get them out. And this is for November. We're going to be having more conversations about this. We're going to be talking about the strategies for the midterm elections. Yes, the midterm elections are next year. So all of these things are very vital, and we're going to be assuring that we can change the outcome of what's happening and not selling ourselves to any one party, but getting the actual people who are most competent, honest, democratic, and represent American values, Puerto Rican values, or democratic values for this next election. We'll see you soon. Thank you very much.
Y ellos la llamaban